So Batman Kid Crusader premiered recently, and unlike everybody else on the internet who seems to be loving it, I personally was very disappointed and let down by it because I frankly thought that the show could have and should have been a lot more than what it was. So I kind of just wanted to take a moment to get my little unscripted, rambly thoughts out there about it because I had a lot to say about it. Primarily, my issues with the show are to do with its tone and its lack of a consistent tone. I felt that this show is a very frustrated mess of ideas and concepts that do not gel well together at all. While the marketing would have you believe that this is a very dark and gritty kind of noir-esque tale, some of the episodes in the show are schlocky villain of the week filler. The identity and the vibe of this whole series is just all over the fucking place. And the fact that it had 3 very big-name, high-profile executive producers probably contributes to that. Something on the inside tells me that Matt Reeves, J.J. Abrams, and Bruce Timm all had very different ideas about what this show should have been, and I think that in the end, it just comes out confused and messy and just all over the place. A lot of the characterization within the villains I found to be very frustrating. There's a lot of really interesting ideas at play here, making the Penguin a female kind of more maternal mob boss figure is very interesting. However, they get rid of her as quickly as she's introduced. She's merely a stand-in for the pilot episode and then never brought up again. That was very disappointing. Harley Quinn, a very interesting character in the show for a few episodes. They give her a lot more agency. She's a lot more kind of capable and dangerous than she's been in the past. They also portray her as openly gay, which is very interesting and something that diehard fans of the comics will not be surprised with. However, again, they get rid of her just as quickly as she's introduced, and this really interesting take on the character ultimately goes nowhere. However, all of those pale in competition with Two-Face, where I think the show fails its characters the most. The characterization of Harvey in the show is just horrible. They paint him as this one-sided, very headstrong, kind of cocky asshole from episode 1 without delving into any sort of other personality traits that he may have. So by the end of the show, when the Two-Face accident happens and he becomes a villain, the split identity side of his character makes no sense because we are not shown more than one side of him throughout most of the show's runtime. They just completely get rid of any sort of nuance or complexity within Harvey's psychology. They paint him to be frankly unlikable and expect the audience to then transition to feeling sorry for him later after he has become the villain, after he has committed multiple murders. And honestly, by that point, I just really could not care for this version of Two-Face. I felt nothing for him, which is a big problem because a lot of the finale of this show very much hinges on the fact that you are to care for this version of Harvey, you are to feel sorry for him, you are to be invested in him, and I just felt none of those things because I felt that his character was just robbed of everything that ought to make him interesting. Talking about the animation briefly, while I think the animation is of decent quality and I have no issue with the artists that spent hundreds and hundreds of hours making this thing happen, I think that it lacks personality and style, and I think that it should have really pushed itself to be more than what it is, because while on the surface this show seems to demand a more gothic and stylized animation style, honestly there is nothing here that distinguishes it from all the other Batman animated direct-to-DVD movies that we've had in the past couple of years. Just very disappointing. The writing is all over the place. The characterization of both the heroes and the villains is at best strange and at worst inferior to other incarnations. I will say, this version of Batman and the voice actor that voices him, I have no issues with. I was very impressed with the portrayal of the character in this show, and there are some great Batman moments, but overall, I just did not care for the show and ultimately felt very let down. Hate to say it, but this one is a miss for me.